I would like to introduce our next speaker. She is Judith Pennington, an internationally published journalist, a mind researcher, and a world authority on EEG biofeedback meditation and the evolution of our understanding of consciousness. She's the founder of the Institute for the Awakened Mind and co-developer of the Vilistus Mind Mirror 6 EEG and the Mind Mirror portal. I've worked with Judith since 2017 in our discovery research program, and her expertise with the Mind Mirror has really helped support in many valuable ways our research and development at the Monroe Institute. So welcome, Judith.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here. I really appreciate this whole experience and want to thank you, each one of you, for being here and hope you enjoy this talk. It's been our honor and privilege really to participate in the discovery program, which is the subject of my talk today. So this talk is entitled Superconscious, the Brainwaves of Extraordinary States. And what we have done, the Mind Mirror community, for the past 3 years, as Bob mentioned, twice a year, is monitor people's brainwave patterns during these discovery programs. And discovery is the only known long-term, large-scale EEG monitored psi research program in the world. That makes it really special and exciting for each and every one of us, because what we hope is that what we're doing will end up in published papers. What we've found over this 3-year period is that these gamma frequencies, orchestrated by Bob Holbrook and delivered through Monroe audio technology, support and enhance remote viewing capabilities, out-of-body travel, and profound non-local experiences that add meaning and purpose to people's lives. Participants report expanded awareness that endures, not just to the end of the program, but sometimes we hear back from them much later on. And the consciousness expansion is lasting. Life-enhancing revelations during the program, relief from pain, and sometimes some actual physical healings. Everyone experiences mental clarity and integration, emotional peace and calm, heightened intuition, and profound mystical experiences, because after all, as this graph shows, what they are doing is moving beyond time and space into the infinite, into other dimensions of awareness. And then you might ask, well, how do we know that they are having these benefits? A whole lot of different ways. Personal interaction with the participants throughout the program, 5-day program, written reports, an opening questionnaire that asks for their meditation and spiritual experience and practices, how many programs they've attended at Monroe before, their age, vital statistics, things like that. Then post-exercise questionnaires after every single 40-minute meditation they do, is typically 2 each morning that we monitor. And they fill out what was their experience. It's complete feedback, also with mystical, emotional, and comfort scales, because we want to make sure they're comfortable, because that will affect their experience. Closing self-assessment, that gives 4 improvement ratings, also feedback on how they experienced and benefited from the program in general, but also we're asking them for a qualitative descriptor of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual / non-local improvements over the week. And then during the final reports we give to each participant based on the brainwave patterns, there's feedback there too. So we really hear from people very directly what their experience was. And then for us, most of all, the data showing the changes in the Mind Mirror pattern statistics. We'll look at that a lot, and I'll need to explain this in order for you to understand what we're looking at. So the Mind Mirror measures an array of frequencies that cluster in these categories: delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma, all the way from 0.5 hertz all the way up to 100 hertz frequencies. And we have a completely unique EEG device There's nothing else like it in the world. It's a dual hemisphere pattern measuring the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. And the interrelationships of the frequency bars between each of these categories, and then the interrelationships of the categories themselves, which through 45 years of monitoring people and conducting our own research, we have discovered gives us an understanding of the actual state of consciousness. So changes in the pattern equate to changes in the state of consciousness. And I'll say something about this pattern here, which is called the awakened mind. In it, what you see in the orange and yellow bars, which is called beta, these are the beta brainwaves of active external thought. These are very quiet right here. You're not seeing a lot of activity which would relate to list making, decision making, stress, panic, anxiety, that sort of thing. None of that is in this pattern. It is downwardly curved and in beautiful connection with its relaxed, sensory, diffused, detached alpha brainwaves. Alpha, you just heard, is very much associated with healing. And indeed, studies have shown that alpha, actually theta, this combination of these two bars here, is where healing occurs. And you'll see some of that in this show. So alpha has a unique function of serving as a bridge from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind of theta. Inside our theta frequencies, this is where we connect with wherever our memories are stored, and long-term memories, and something we call the essential being. Some people call it the deeper core self. Some people call it the soul. Whatever you call it, when people are in their theta, this is where they connect through their memories, often past life memories, with what needs healing. Because as the repository of long-term memory, our issues are stored here. But this is also where people experience their creativity and their insight and their spiritual awareness. The next and last category down here at the bottom in the purple is called delta, where theta is associated with dreaming, REM sleep. Delta is associated with deep, dreamless, restorative sleep. But in waking states, when we see delta, we know that what we're really looking at is the personal unconscious mind. Those frequencies that are like a kind of radar on an instinctual level that are searching for information, searching for energy, seeking to understand the world and other people through empathy, and also through psychic awareness. So when we see an expansion and amplitude, which is the width of this pattern, the power of the signal, then we're looking at someone who's either having a psychic insight or connecting with the collective unconscious mind. And we would call that the quantum field or source or whatever terms you use. It's searching far beyond self for energy and information beyond the self. And so what we have in this pattern, which Max Cade, the inventor of the Mind Mirror, back in 1976 found in highly developed and spiritually aware people, is an awakened mind. And that is awake to itself, awake to others, awake to its spirit, having access to the clarity of the conscious mind, the relaxed, diffused sensory awareness of the alpha bridge, the creativity, insight, spirituality of the theta subconscious, and the empathy and psychic awareness of the delta unconscious mind. In one program, Bob Holbrook and Ross Dunsby referred to our brainwave patterns as portals, and indeed that's exactly what they are. The awakened mind of creative flow and peak performance has long been associated with psychic awareness. In fact, it was found in psychics and healers, mediums, and other advanced meditators and other highly developed people. Interestingly, I captured these three images from a previous exercise aria during a discovery program. And this is the same person here that showed this awakened mind. And as the gamma frequencies and the meditations continued, this person developed that much gamma. And you can see the vast difference. This has 2 extra bands that you don't see in this awakened mind pattern, which stops at 44 hertz. This gamma synchrony pattern includes 2 bands of what we call mid-gamma. The gamma synchrony pattern is called the superconscious mind because it's really about transcendence, love, compassion, mystical union, spiritual ecstasy, even the aha insight, a moment of revelation of, oh, I get it. And in fact, there's a synchronization between the brain lobes across the array of frequencies. This person is completely switched on. And you can note that this is an awakened mind pattern below, same pattern below this gamma. So this person's gamma is beautifully grounded in this theta and delta. And then this pattern in the middle is called the evolved mind. I also took this from the same ARIA recording, and you can see in the gray that this person is experiencing a good bit of upper, mid, and lower gamma, which we have found actually triggers these patterns, that the gamma frequencies and Bob's meditations trigger them sometimes gradually, sometimes suddenly, but they certainly do inform and stabilize the pattern. This evolved mind was, until gamma synchrony, the highest known state of consciousness, wherein the person lets go of the ego, surrenders to an experience of the field, the source, and feels bliss, can feel radiance, sometimes an explosion of light in the energy system, certainly a feeling of oneness, interesting that it's a circle, and non-duality. And then there's one other pattern. We do not measure this pattern during the discovery programs because it's so rare. We only see it, I've only seen it 2 or 3 other times in non-discovery programs, but in discovery, we see it, as you'll see in the slideshow, surprisingly often. And what this is a 100 hertz evolved mind pattern going all the way up. So here we have union with source as high as we can measure in the frequencies. In this meditation, the meditator traveled from constellation to constellation, experienced the peace and perfection of Lyra, Vega, and their planets, and produced this pattern when he realized that he would be able to go to the planets and enjoy the trip. So this is a union of the heart, of the spirit, a moment of tremendous excitement. And you can even see that his gamma down in this composite display was arousing, decreased for a moment, and then he goes to the planets right there, perfectly visible in his pattern. He called this on the mystical scale an 8 out of 10, meaning that he went incredibly high, and we'll look at that mystical scale in a moment. But first, just to show you that we're actually measuring in statistics, so that at a specific training level where we see advanced meditators, psychics, healers, mediums, people with extraordinary awakened mind scores, that they are measuring for the awakened mind between 75 and 100%. This person measured 89% on the 100 hertz scale, which is extremely impressive, and so is his gamma synchrony, 83%. Not so high for the evolved mind because he has a bit of a right brain dominance here, and this is a dual hemisphere pattern. And so you say, well, what do people do with these patterns? Well, this very same person in the very next exercise called Space Place, which was an out-of-body experience, he hit the target that was placed in a box, either an object or a representation of an object, and placed on the rafter in the training room. And while he was traveling out of body, and his higher self permeated with love and compassion, and these extremely high awakened mind scores on the 100 hertz scale, and this big evolved mind pattern at the bottom, he described that target perfectly. And so one of the exciting things about this program is that it is scientifically designed. Ross Dunseith and Bob Holbrook worked together on that as a research team. And we are gathering statistics mostly for the participants, but Ross is working with some helpers, some assistants, and crunching the data to see what is the relationship between gamma and out-of-body travel and remote viewing. So, of course, we pay very close attention to someone who hits a target score 1. You might be wondering now, what is an 8 of 10 on the mystical scale mean? Well, this is for the person in a subjective way, their way of saying how high they were in the meditation. Starts with the loss of the usual sense of time and space, the experience that this was more real than your normal awareness, a sense that the experience cannot be adequately described in words. And then when you get to that state in consciousness, you may well be having the experience of pure awareness. No more sensation of your body. It's just you and your mind and spirit. Then might come the experience of unity with something larger than yourself, and which would bring a sense of awe or reverence, the experience of bliss or indefinable peace, sensation of being surrounded in light, feelings of universal love. You are convinced that you encountered ultimate reality. Now, we don't define what ultimate reality is, but when people encounter it, they absolutely know it. So what we found during this program, all the programs, is that the gamma waves that are embedded in the 40-minute musical meditations that people are listening to, they elevate these statistical pattern scores. You can see here in this bar graph, for instance, this gamma synchrony. They started during the opening baseline, which consists of an eyes open segment, an eyes closed segment, then a 10-minute meditation that's guided and has no gamma beats in it whatsoever. This person started at about a 43%, went up to 60% gamma. The gamma was another 55%. And by the closing baseline, still with no gamma beats in the animal meditation, the gamma was up to 80%, which is an enormous rise in gamma. And it's saying that the person had an enduring gamma, and a gamma that opened like a portal to their being able to experience the meditation, not just on the physical level where I'm an animal and I'm perceiving things about myself, which is the intention of the meditation, but I'm an animal and I perceive multiple levels of understanding of my experience when they have this kind of high 80% gamma like that. This person also had very high gamma scores all the way through, which elevated their awakened mind scores. So this is really beautiful, because what it's saying is that people's brainwaves are becoming more coherent, more ordered, more organized, more stable, and thus they are able to attain higher and higher levels of consciousness. I'm showing you this. This is my nerd fest, where I put all of the information from all of the reports plus the brainwave statistics into this spreadsheet so that I can get an overview of what was happening for each person during the week, and then write that up into some reports for Monroe. For instance, this person started on the opening baseline with a 91% awakened mind, ended up with a 95%. In red, you see the target number 1 scores. For this particular program, there were 18 target 1 scores hits where the people almost perfectly described the target. And in gold, Monroe doesn't pay too much attention to the target 2 scores, but I think they're important, so I place them on here. And so target 1 was approaching statistical significance. But if you think about it, it's pretty significant that somebody can sit in a chair, close their eyes, and perceive the content of a target box that could be billions of things. And instead, they perceive what it actually was. So it's extraordinarily significant to all of us, I think, that people are able to perceive the target in the first place, a target 1 or a target 2. Also on here are the mystical scores. This person had a mystical 1. This person, for example, had a mystical scale 6, which is huge. During an OBE, they did not hit the target, but they said that this was a significant insight. There's an insights questionnaire they answer where they'll say whether it was 1 asterisk, which was an experience, 2 is an important insight, and 3 is a life-changing insight. So if you go down, let me find a really good one for you. Here is a target score 1. They hit the target. They had a life-changing insight inside of a mystical scale 6. And it's just really extraordinary because what we see here, of course, is that this program absolutely works. This person, for example, had an out-of-body experience literally all the way through. So this is what I used to write the final report. And now I'll show you just a little bit about how the program's conducted. So this is Felice Dubois, Andrew Tang, Niket Kaitan, and Rachel Allman, who are the monitors who are hooking people up. 4 at a time, they sit at this table and we apply electrodes on the temporal lobes and then the occipital lobes. We want to see how people are seeing the world, seeing their memories, experiencing their memories, and we're also staying away from the very noisy, artifact-laden frontal lobe. So we are hooking them up in the back. It takes about an hour to hook up the usual 16 to 20 people. And then they sit in upright chairs. Some people sit in these anti-gravity chairs, and some people even lie down on air beds. We don't encourage that because it tends to make people fall asleep. But we want them to be comfortable above all so they can really let go and experience the meditations. Then the lights go out. Each monitor is monitoring 4 people sitting at a table, watching their brainwave patterns and then drawing the patterns so they can give the participants immediate feedback. And that's really important because sometimes a person may not have enough alpha, which means that they're not going to be able to draw that insight from their theta up across an alpha bridge into conscious awareness. So we can kind of coach them on how to increase their alpha. But it's also important because people will have a subjective experience that we will see in the mind mirror patterns and say, oh, afterwards, we'll say, oh, you had a big flare of gamma or awakened mind or something right here, and they'll have told us exactly why. So then we can help them match their inner experience with their landmark, and they can use that landmark as a portal to that same higher state of consciousness, which kind of gives them a little bit of a head start. So now I want to show you some results. Of course, the people who come to this program are typically very advanced in consciousness, but not all of them. And even the ones who are not have extraordinary experiences. This was a non-meditator, age 30, a musician and professional stage builder, who came to the program for exactly one reason, and that was to clear his mind chatter and attain a quiet mental space. Instead, well, of course, he did all of that, but he hit 3 target score 1s, and he had 2 out-of-body experiences, which is pretty darned extraordinary. In light wave, he said, I felt like I was floating in water. It was very calming. I heard myself snoring and saw random images of hills and streams. In liquid mind, my body became much lighter. My mind melted into a single consciousness. And that is a quiet mental space. In Arya, he says, I don't recall anything. Well, that is because he had less alpha in this meditation than the others, and he had the same high amplitude theta and delta. So these lower frequencies were dragging him down into a non-conscious state. But when he woke up, he remembered the target. In presence, he saw a trophy that became a snow globe and told him, I am on the right path. And he had a mystical experience 10. There were a lot of messages to him personally. You can see he's had a ton of gamma up here. And in this case, a lot of alpha to sustain that theta and delta. During higher, he landed on a serene red-orange planet. He saw a bunch of red-orange colors and then found himself landing on a planet. But then he clicked out. And you can see the amplitude decrease here and also the loss of his alpha, which is why he clicked out. So he didn't hit the target, but he had a mystical scale 6, so he didn't really care that he missed the target in this case. So from the opening to closing baselines, he had an awakened mind that went from a 51%, and you can see why, not much alpha, all that huge theta and delta, to an 86% with a ton of alpha. He actually increased his alpha by a factor of 4. And he said that he left the program feeling extremely relaxed, at peace with himself, and able to sleep better at night, which was really lovely because then, of course, he's able to dream as well. He went from a mental 4 to 10, physical 7 to 10, emotional 5 to 9, spiritual non-local. He said he started at a 7, he ended up at 11, and he may have even put it higher. This was a life-changing program for him. So I'll just go to the next slide. I included this one because of the people who do find pain relief. This was a philosophy professor, age 77. He had been to 1 Gateway and 2 RV programs. He was a student of healing modalities, various ones, trying to heal himself from old sports injuries that caused his mind to race and soar during meditation, and not being able to really let his consciousness drift into these low, slow frequencies where the body's able to reset itself. So he wanted to remediate his pain and his memory loss. So he hit a target score 1 during light wave, where he floated out of body, pain-free over nature landscapes and buildings and cities and towns, some new and exotic, all benevolent and wondrous places he wanted to revisit, he said. You can see his big theta, his big delta, these low frequencies. This is where he's going to experience that pain relief and decrease that massive gamma, which for him in ordinary states is probably stress gamma. And then in Arya, he didn't hit the target, but he didn't care because he traveled out of body along a brightly lit path between large fields of corn, relaxed and pain-free, deeply connected with himself, universal love, and something beyond himself. Here, his gamma was truly transcendent gamma, according to his own description. What was really important was that he had a right brain dominance during the opening baseline with his eyes open, which had balanced out by the end of the program. And then he had a left brain dominance with his eyes closed, which had balanced out by the end of the program. He said that his expansion in consciousness was both intellectual and intuitive. During the week, he had a few dreams that were, for once, uninterrupted by pain. He enjoyed the kindness, friendship, and non-competitive sharing, and then wrote, most touchingly, the positive, supportive group dynamic increased my faith in humanity. And for a philosophy professor, you would certainly want that. In fact, his spiritual non-local increased from 5 to 8, emotional 5 to 9, physical 4 to 7, mental 5 to 7. So people really take these descriptions quite seriously. I included this slide to show you how profoundly these mystical experiences affect people. During the opening baseline, this woman, a retired professional coach, age 68, she'd been to 4 previous Monroe programs and practiced metamusic and pranic healing. She had a mystical experience 1 that jumped to a 5 during the very first meditation. Then she was uncomfortable during light wave and her electrodes were bothering her. We adjusted her. And then she jumped up to a mystical 8, 9, and 2 10s. And then by the closing baseline, which again has no gamma beats and is just a guided meditation, she was on a mystical 6. So a tremendous enhancement in her experiences. Target score 1 during light wave. She said it wasn't like previous RV experiences, hard to focus too much imagery. And that's because she was down here in her theta and delta, her just too much theta and delta for that amount of gamma. But during liquid mind, she had less theta and delta, much more gamma, all the way up to 100 hertz. And she went out of body and hit the target. She said she floated up to the ceiling, looked down at the group, and used the target box as a portal to fly out to Earth and the stars. She met several light beings. One of them, she was amused to see, was a wisp of smoke and understood the connectedness of all things. And you can see from her opening to her closing baseline, eyes closed patterns, just an enormous increase in gamma, which explains her gamma synchrony score from 57 to 71%, which is incredibly high. She started out on all levels at a 9. She said it took her to a 10. This is validation and encouragement to continue on my current spiritual path. I am changed forever. My perception is so different because of my many experiences. I see the world in a whole new way. And you would expect, because she ratcheted up to a whole different level of consciousness. I wanted to show you this one because first it's an outreach trainer with tons of experiences, meditation for 20 years, obviously lots and lots of Monroe programs. He practiced shamanic, holotropic breathing and yoga. And he was just there to expand his consciousness, and he certainly did. This is his same brainwave pattern, a beautiful awakened mind pattern. Little bit of extra beta up here at the 15 hertz bar, but it turned out that he was narrating his experiences and it didn't interrupt him from doing so. So that was fine and dandy. In liquid mind, he saw beautiful images of the cosmos and Earth and heard messages of hope and love for life and evolution. His higher self talked to him from far away, and he received energy for himself and others. He called that a mystical scale 3. Then in Aria, he had a mystical scale 6 experience. And this is the other reason I included this slide. He wrote, "This was a journey to contacting the essence of nature, myself, and the world. I perceived life and love in all forms. I connected with my guides and higher self and received this message," which echoes what Dr. Gallenberger was saying. And also Dr. Powell too. "Return to your essence. You come here to learn love. Love is around you in nature, the elements, loved ones. Come back to what is inside you and know that we are you and are with you." And he wrote, "I thought I was too high to RV easily, but a vivid colored image appeared, and it was so perfect that it got a target score 1 with an asterisk. Meaning that there were no extraneous details. He absolutely nailed this target." The other thing that's important about this one in Aria is that while he's in his essential being, he produced this pattern of the higher self, which is a perfect diamond. It's actually a gradation from this awakened mind humanoid-shaped pattern to the circular evolved mind pattern. He's on the way to merging, but now he's still aware of himself, but he's in a higher version of himself. And in the next exercise, a target score 2, but he traveled out of body around the room, then went to the box and identified the target after looking many times. He said he looked down at each person. But he was so far out of body, this might account for why his target score was a 2, which, as I say, I still consider to be significant. He retracted his brainwaves into this little tiny pattern, which compared to his ordinary pattern is almost nothing. And you're going to see more of that right here. So we do see this a pretty good bit. And basically my theory is that when people are traveling out of body, then consciousness is actually exiting the brain. And so the brain obviously maintains function, but it's certainly not as active electrically. So this one, these 2 graphs was during Liquid Mind, produced by a retired professional coach who was perceiving the connectedness in all things. Target score 1, mystical scale 8, because she's got this stunning universal consciousness pattern all the way up to 100 hertz. She goes out of body, she disappears. These are on the same scale, 15 microvolts. So this is an enormous retraction of her brainwave activities. Same thing here in Liquid Mind, a 100 hertz evolved mind pattern. He exits through that portal, target score 1, mystical experiences 6. This retired aerospace engineer was searching for medical help, and out of body, he found himself floating toward above a road on the way to a specific medical center, exited here. And then these 2 sets of graphs of the same person, whose name I have permission to use. This is Sonia Barkala, who was a French filmmaker who attended the August 2019 program. She was there to film people experiencing and talking about the Discovery program and doing these studies on RV and out of body. And she is going to released that film, is working on it still, and also a book. And she had had herself several out-of-body experiences. So she said, well, why don't I hook up and see what happens for me? So she went into this a lower frequency evolved mind pattern, quite beautiful, target score 1. She saw solutions to problems and an eagle that turned out later on, we discovered her hostess had captured on video during the exercise, and there she disappears. During Liquid Mind, same evolved mind pattern. Of course, she was flying up into gamma part of this time. Target score 1/1, because she saw the target box from different views and aspects, vase, scissors, telephone. And she saw all these aspects because in this exercise, Ross had inadvertently left a pair of scissors in the target box, and she and other people in this program picked up both targets. She described them both with a target scale of 1 and 1, and then she goes out of body, she disappears again. In one program, Bob had the idea of asking people to do a group synchronization and go out to the crystal there on the Monroe property. And they went in different brainwave patterns, but they certainly went. And so this became a little exercise for other programs as well. People said, I met others at the crystal. It looked as if everyone was there and several of us were inside it. I didn't stay long, just long enough to see us all present. Same thing with this person, only this person took everyone else up to Focus 27 and on to the carousel, which I assume was Mary, but don't know any more about the carousel than that. Perhaps you do. This person began by circling alone as an eagle above the crystal, landing, shape-shifting to a person entering through a portal, and said, I see the crystal as a portal to other crystals, which are also portals. And then this person had also an experience with a bird. And this bird came from his animal sensualization during the opening baseline. Said, I saw the crystal from a distance, and all of a sudden, I was right next to it, seeing it in detail. I went into it and felt like my essence was filling the voids, presumably these crevices, to strengthen it, and the crystal was doing the same for me. Then I came out of it, saw others, and was flying above it, as if I was my hawk. Noticing the energy of the various people from the group, I felt a great love and togetherness from the group. And then this person wrote, I looked down at my feet, and I was walking on the red brick patio outside. I went over to the crystal, merged with it, and felt its coolness. Then I saw transparent bodies in the hall and one off to the side. I got very excited because I knew that one was a particular person who was rooming next to her. So she walked back outside with X, and they horsed around for a bit, then decided to merge with the crystal. X became a teenage mutant ninja turtle, and so did she. After the meditation, she asked X if he remembered, and he said no, he didn't remember, but that ninja turtles are an important symbol for him. So whether this psychic picked this up telepathically or out of body and spirit is unknown, but she definitely picked up some information that was confirmed. And again, you see that these are all basically awakened mind patterns with extra theta and delta, or patterns all the way up in gamma. And then sometimes people travel to the crystal and they aren't asked to do so. This one person during the meditation Earth Heart, she was an administrative assistant, 73, non-meditator, no previous Monroe programs, came from another country. She wrote, I found myself working in a garden on a sunny morning. A little rabbit, and there he is, appeared and opened the door to the big crystal. It was wonderful to see inside of it as light was shining through. I went downstairs with the rabbit through levels, some dark and some light. At the center of the earth, we arrived at a medical clinic with doctors, teachers, and nurses. They said that people were using too much earth fuel, which is possibly suggestive by the title of this meditation, Earth Heart. The people in the clinic were repairing the earth. I came back upstairs, filled with hope. She's got a beautiful awakened mind on a 100 hertz scale and a lot of gamma 2 at 66%. Mystical scale 5, no target in that meditation. We do see this neural resonance a lot during this program, where people are healing themselves, healing other people. And I included this slide because this is to show you that people do track brainwave patterns. In one program, Ross was sitting there and said, watching the brainwaves, and said, look at them, they're exactly the same, and they were. And so there is some field coupling, some neural resonance. This person who had as his average pattern a ton of theta and delta down here, this person as an awakened mind, he went during an out-of-body experience, grabbed the RV target, but was interrupted and forgot some details. So he took her down to, or up to, Space Station Alpha X, brought her to a healing center. He felt a lot of energy, and after the meditation, she said she felt much better. Before, he said that he had been healing her, and the same thing happened in a previous program where he was working on her, and during the meditation, she saw his face and hands working on her before he said so. And though you can see that there's a lot of similarity in these patterns, they're going down to theta, delta, and here each one of them has an evolved mind pattern on the right. So I'm mindful of my time, but I'm just going to skate very fast through as many of these slides as I can, because everyone loves the mystical or the non-physical experiences. Of course, everything you've seen so far is non-physical to some extent, but these have to do more with the spiritual ecstasy kind of level. So this person had the single most profound, at least as was reported, experience in all of the 6 of the discovery programs we've monitored so far. Basically, he wanted to go out of body, and so he repeated about 100 times, door, now. And then he began to feel out-of-body sensations and felt himself immersed or swimming in cool, salty oceans of water. And then the vibrations increased, and he felt this crawling sensation on the top of his head that caused his body to jerk. And he said he felt like a teardrop of light, a light entity or a ball of light. And then he saw a tunnel of light and was engulfed by wonder and began to weep. And so he released from his body at that point, massaged his monitor's shoulders and temples to relieve her headache. And then he saw a triangle as bright as the stars. He was overwhelmed with joy and wonder, aware that he was out of body and in his chair at the same time. He felt this enormous oneness. And he said that later on that he had made 4 attempts to go out of body before he was successful. He's dropping his alpha, he's dropping all of his frequencies, all of his categories. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, actually there's the 4th one, and then there he goes. You see his gamma increasing up here. He maintains his alpha. And in these pictures, we see an evolved mind of unity consciousness in the right brain. Then he slams up into gamma. The gamma gets stronger. He disappears then out of his brainwave electrical activities. Then he comes back in the right brain, and he comes back in a 100 hertz awakened mind, which is pretty darn impressive. This is a small business owner, age 56, 9 previous programs. She was connecting with her children, and then the imagery of some deer outside, and then found herself floating up to the light inside an intense energy ball, like electricity globes, and she just absolutely powered up. She started with her oneness, 100 hertz, evolved mind pattern here, powering up into the globe and merging with the globe, 100 hertz evolved mind. And you can see where she turned on this gamma. Of course, what happens is it's not that the gamma is buffeting you with high frequencies. You're being supported, as Bob says, on a scaffold with delta, theta, and alpha frequencies that allow you to move with the alpha. And that's exactly what she did. And when she did that, went into this state, she said, I sent this energy out, then was in nothingness, becoming no thing. She dissolved into dust, then ether, and felt that she was everywhere in the universe, mixed with everything. She did not want to leave. Coming out, she was cold and tingling with energy. She went from a spiritual and non-local 6 to a 10 because of this and many other experiences that she had during the program, which she said would help her build a better meditation practice, connect better with her family and others. And of course, she had a better understanding of her connectedness to everything and to everyone. This was a lawyer from another country, a natural psychic, who had built up her own energy. This is her doing that right there in the right brain, and spiraling into a dance out of body with others she was asked to connect with in the group, and did a beautiful ballet dance. And this indeed looks like a ballet dance. They drove together in a spaceship driven by energy and telepathic thoughts. They healed her dog, and then Mr. Monroe appeared, she said, to show his gratitude for this research and for the people's now. And I thought it was really interesting when I put this in here, because here's Mr. Hemisync Bob Monroe in this pattern with perfectly balanced gamma. I think that I won't have much time to show you many more slides, but I will slide this one in to show you that when these non-physical beings come into people's fields, it really does ramp up their brainwaves. This is a man, a retired chiropractor and outreach trainer, age 77, who was there to facilitate the French filmmaker. And he has a tendency to click out and then come back after his click out with the image. which I hope is some encouragement for those of you who do the same. So he wrote that a few minutes into the exercise, his fingers moved in both hands, and that to him was a sign that some energy form is present. And there he is. His gamma is ramping up, and then it ramps up more and more. He says his spirit people come and disappear, and then he saw some other people, 2 other people in the class, plus his monitor, embraced everyone with heartbeats, and then he clicked out to the end. His gamma was ramping up during all of this spirit people business, and then he clicks out, and you can see in this increase in his delta, sleepy delta brainwaves, and then he suddenly wakes up at the end of the exercise at the exact time that he sees an image of a bunch of flowers becoming a bouquet, which represented the members of the group. You can see that he got his alpha bridge back, everything. He had this huge insight at that time. So I have a ton more slides. I'm sorry I don't have time to tell you about this retired homicide detective who hit 7 targets in one program out of a possible 8. He, in one meditation during the Superconscious Mind program, he saw Ross smiling about something that either surprised him or confirmed something he suspected. And at lunch, he ran into Ross, who had the exact same expression, said he detained the target, the only person in this Superconscious Mind program of mine in December of 2018, the only target hitter during that whole thing. And indeed, I hope that Ross has since taken him to the DOPS lab as a subject. And then last, I will just say that this meditation center at the mindmirrorportal.com does have those Superconscious Mind meditations. The cosmic waves, 9 people had out-of-body experiences during the cosmic waves exercise. Of course, it's got gamma beats in there by Bob. So if you can never find time to go to Monroe, you can go to this website and check out the Superconscious Mind program. And then lastly, oh my goodness, the things people say. I am a normal human being. This affirmed my proper use to humanity. I find easy the solution of problems. People become more grounded. They recognize, this is my favorite one, I have the definite impression that altered states are not altered for me anymore. People recharge, they shift into different states of consciousness, they hit the target, have out-of-body experiences, and they leave this program absolutely changed and really excited. And we certainly hope that in 2022, we're going to have 2 discovery programs monitor there, and that some of you can come to them and fly to infinity on those gamma beat frequencies and enjoy the camaraderie of like-seeking spirits. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry I had to talk so fast. I had to fit a lot in there.
Wow. That was amazing. That's incredible.
The results that are found with all of these people is fascinating. We've had several people comment that they've had, you're talking about what they've experienced when they've had out of body or when they've had meditative enlightenment experiences. We have time for maybe 1.5 questions, Judith.
Right.
That's fantastic to get that feedback, Susan, because that's why I use those particular slides, assuming that people would resonate with their own experiences. Thank you. Ready for questions?
Yeah, I've got one here if you want to do that, or Susan, did you have one you wanted to do?
Go ahead, Paul.
Great. So there's a question here. Can 2 participants share a common experience? And if yes, what does the shared encounter look like in terms of brain patterns, right? Do they sync together in brain patterns in any way?
They do. They sync together in brain patterns. And one story I didn't get to tell you, which I absolutely love, is that not only can they sync together, but they can get the same information and have it show up as a target score 1 hit. In one program, this prank player, a prankster who had been to many programs, hit the target, reported the target on the survey, and then during the feedback time told me that he had, while he was up at the target box, had placed a toy fire truck in the target box. And I said, you better tell that to Ross. And he did, shouted it across the room, and Ross went, oh no, because that means, well, you've messed up the scores. But sure enough, people, at least 2 people, maybe 3 in the group actually saw that toy fire truck in addition to the target. So yes, indeed, they share information, they share brainwave patterns, but really they have to have a basic awakened mind to have that flow of consciousness. They have to have that stability. And we do see that, just as you saw with the healing situation, they'll lockstep. And we see this in a lot of, the Mind Mirror community sees this in a lot of studies on mediums and psychics and healers, is they'll just get in a lockstep. You'll see beautiful resonance between the patterns, and same thing in the discovery program.
So I think, yeah, that's all the time we have, unfortunately, for questions. But thank you, Judith, for presenting this. This is incredible, just amazing. So thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been my great and grand pleasure. Looking forward to more programs. And thank you, Bob, and thank you, Ross.